So AI can now make a game, but how does it compare to a human? Well, today I'm gonna find out by making my own game and then using an AI called Rosebud to try to recreate it even better. We'll compare them based on 3 categories and pick a winner. I partnered with Rosebud for this video, and we're also gonna host an AI game jam with a $1,000 prize pool. More on that later. For now, let's see my game. I started by making a candle, which is a weird thing to start with, but the entire game revolves around this thing. Basically, it burns down over time, and if it runs out, you get hunted by enemies. I'll explain more later, but for now, we need to get this thing working. I started by adding fire. It doesn't look great now, but I can change it later. But there's an even bigger problem. How do we show the player that the candle's melting? Well, I could make a bunch of different models, but that's gonna take way too long, and we're trying to get this done as fast as possible. I just made the candle stick a separate object so I could move it up and down like this. But from the player's point of view, it looked like it was melting. Kinda, but it'll definitely look better in the dark, so I want to make the map now. Last time I made a house from scratch, it took me over a week, so this time I'm gonna be using my resources. It still took a while to put all the parts together, but it was way faster than doing it from scratch. It looked pretty good, but there was one issue. It looks like a game right now, but not a horror game. Luckily, there's an easy fix. Just make it way too dark and give the player a light that's so dim they have to get 2 inches from their screen to see anything. This looked pretty good, and I liked that the candle was the only light in the house, except the fire just didn't look right. I ended up dropping 5 clams for this new one, and it looked so much better. This had me feeling confident, so I said, you know what, I'm gonna add particles that make the candle look like it's melting. Bruh. I was humbled and decided to move on. The main idea of the candle is that it goes down over time and you want to keep it alive. But right now, there's nothing you can do to keep it alive. So next, we should add a way to get new candles. I copied and pasted the model all over the house. There are like 20 of them, but each one only has a chance of spawning in, so it wasn't too easy, and the locations would change every game. Then I made it so that if you go up to a candle and hit E, you can collect it and reset your light. It worked, but just to make it a little bit better, I added a simple animation, which made it feel way better. Now the candle works completely, and your job is to keep it alive, because if it runs out... Okay, I don't really know. We should add that now. So I couldn't really decide what I wanted the enemy to be, and I had a lot of cool ideas, but it had to be something that you could kill with the candlelight. That way it would make sense that you have to keep the flame alive. Eventually, I decided the best enemy for this would be a doll. It's pretty easy to make, can be burned with a candle, and that's all we need. First, I made the model. I ended up making a voodoo doll since they're bald and hair is hard to make. And I'm not gonna lie, the model was not my best work, but once everything was textured, it looked pretty good. So how does he work? Well, I made it so if you find him while you still have the candle, you can light him on fire and win the game. This was pretty easy. I just added fire particles to him and made his material fade to black, so it kinda looked like he was being set on fire. Right now he's laying on the kitchen counter, but we can't have him just sit here all game. I want him to be able to move around the house. So I made a bunch of different spots where he can go, and he'll randomly move to one of these every few seconds. This way you had to search to find him, and since it was so dark, it was pretty difficult. This worked and made a basic objective. Find this dude before the candle runs out. But to make it more interesting, I want to give him some kind of ability. I decided to give him the ability to light a candle. I made it so when he's moving, he has the chance to light a candle that you would have been able to pick up. This just wastes it and makes it harder on you. Now there was motivation to find this dude as fast as possible, because if the candle runs out, he should be able to kill you, but I wasn't sure how to implement this in a quick way because time was running out. So I decided that he could catch you by doing nothing. Okay, so if your light completely runs out, the doll has a bunch of new positions it can move to. And these are places where you're much more likely to walk, like directly behind a door or at the top of the stairs. It seems like he's out in the open, but since it's so dark and you won't have a light source, there's a good chance that you'll walk right up to him. And doing that will trigger the jump scare and end the game. But then I realized that there's no sound for this. With no sound and lights this dark, you couldn't see or hear anything. So we need to fix this. Luckily, making sound effects is kind of my thing. So I took this laugh and added a couple more sounds and a bunch of random effects. And I was able to create this. Maybe not perfect, but definitely better than last time. But with that, my game is finished. It's really simple, but it's coherent and borderline playable, which is a big win for me. But now, let's see if an AI can do any better. Here we are in Rosebud. You can tell it to write code and generate the art for your game. But is it better than a master developer like me? I started with a completely blank template and just asked it to let me move around with WASD. Wrote the code for this and it actually worked. Kinda. Sometimes your head would just keep spinning, but I just told it to fix this and then the movement was working fine. With that done, we can move on to the actual game and we have a lot of work to do. Let's start with the obvious. It's supposed to be a horror game, but right now our character is frolicking through a lovely grass field. We can't have that, so I made it generate a night sky. This might have worked a little too well because I can't see a thing anymore. I told it to make the candle to fix this, but I couldn't even tell if it was working because of how dark it was. So I told it to make it brighter for now and we can just reset it at the end. But with the candle in the game, I just told it to add a light that shrinks over time to simulate the candle melting. It worked right away and I was feeling really good about this. But don't worry, this feeling does not last long because the next step in this game is to make the house. But even the best 3D model generators simply can't do this yet. Since I didn't want to play into its weaknesses and AI is all about creating insane things that would never really exist, I decided to make the game take place somewhere I've never been before. Outside. I had to make a tree which ended up looking pretty weird, but I decided to just run with it. But there's definitely still more we can do to make this environment better. The ground doesn't fit for a horror game, so I replaced it with dirt instead. Since this looked kind of weird, I also made it generate grass patches which spawned randomly, and this helped it feel more full. It's looking pretty good so far, but it's still missing the ability to keep your flame alive like in the original. So I told it to add another candle that you could collect. I made sure it worked and then told it to add a random number in a bunch of random places. Now we can move on to the enemy, which is the part I've been most excited for. I told it to make a voodoo doll and... Are you serious, my brother? There was something off about it, but it just kinda works for horror games. So I told the AI to make him wander around and hide behind certain candles. He's kinda hard to see, but he's there. And this way, if you weren't paying attention, you could walk right into him. With him working, now we just have to add the jump scare. I told Rosebud to make it so that if you touch the doll or run out of light, you get jump scared. And it actually turned out kinda creepy. But with that, the game's done. With both games done, it's time to determine a winner. And the contest will be judged by none other than me. Is this fair? No. Okay, so the first category is speed. And this one isn't even a question. My goal was to complete the game as quickly as possible. And I ended up getting a basic prototype done in about 13 hours, spread across a couple different days. And this is super fast for a game. But the AI, on the other hand, got it done in maybe 2 hours. So I'll give this point to Rosebud. The next category is art. The AI created a style that was really weird, but in a way it worked. Me, on the other hand, I might not be a super experienced artist, but I do feel like mine was a little bit more put together and clean, especially the candle. So I'm gonna give this point to me. Now for the last category, fun. Which game is more fun? Well, if I'm being honest, I'd say neither. But if I had to pick between these two, I'd say it's pretty close. I mean, they're almost the exact same game. In my game, you walk around a dark house trying to find candles or a doll. In the AI game, you walk around collecting candles while avoiding a doll that's moving around. They're extremely similar, which is kind of what I was going for, but I think mine works better for a horror game. Now, you might say that I'm biased, and yeah, I kinda am. So I win, and I think I did a pretty good job. But honestly, this isn't a fair comparison. Rosebud is intended for anyone without experience to try to make a game, and Unity is intended for people who know game development to make a game. So obviously, someone like me with months of experience is gonna do better in Unity. But I was curious to see what other people could make, so I challenged my Discord to make a few games of their own. First game was kinda like a clicker game. You have stone, wood, pickaxe level, and axe level, and you can click on the stone to collect stone, and you can click on this guy to collect wood. Then you could use that to upgrade your pickaxe and axe and get more stone and more wood. So I actually liked this game, and I ended up making an auto clicker and getting to level 1000, so beat that. The next one I tried was this space game. You fly around, shoot other ships, and collect items. Really simple, but unironically better than Starfield. I also tried this zombie survival game, but for some reason my bullets didn't do anything. Dang it, dude, they gave me a Nerf gun. There were a bunch more that I didn't get to, but thank you to everyone who participated. So like I said earlier, Rosebud and I are partnering up for a game jam. These are the prizes, and the game jam will run until 2 weeks from today. It all takes place on their Discord server, which you can find in the description. All you have to do is make a game with Rosebud, submit it into their Games Showcase channel with the tag BCartGameJam. And listen up, because this is important. Normally, you only get so many prompts for free, but you can use the code BCART1 and it gives you a free month of their paid version. All the details are in their server, so if you forget or want to learn a little more, you can join it in the description. Before I go, I promised to shout out to some of the artists on my Discord server. They made some really cool stuff for the community and definitely deserve some recognition for their work. So a big thank you to them, and thanks for watching.